Welcome to Pondering Pandas, a podcast where we ponder about the confusing modern world and try to make sense of it all. We are your host. My name is Jayden.
My name is Ryan.
Hello, Ryan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Well, I feel like the world is changing recently. The
Yeah,
new, like,
especially with the whole refugee TikTok RedNote situation, and
yeah,
the the ban didn't even last very long. It was
yeah,
less than 24 hours, I think.
yeah. I think so. I think the last president decided to put on the ban one day before his leave, and the new president is changing it back. At least give it a delay. So yeah, that's interesting to see how the world is shifting between two presidency at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure what you have seen on refugee RedNote slash TikTok. I personally I have RedNote, but I don't use it. I haven't really looked at it for the past maybe a year or so, so I haven't logged on to it for a very long time. And even now I still haven't logged on. But as this whole situation was happening when the TikTok ban was upcoming, I was scrolling through TikTok, and it's really, really funny how I'm seeing both sides of people from Xiaohongshu, RedNote, and TikTok. So let's just talk about the American side and
Yeah.
those who are not living in China that are talking about TikTok, right? It's really funny because like a lot of them are like, I'm gonna give up my data. I'm gonna give up my I'm gonna I'm gonna do the absolute thing that the US does not want me to do and subscribe into the app that is 100% Chinese owned and
Mhm.
operated in China, right? And the algorithm there is different, and I find the response of moving from American TikTok to Xiaohongshu is very interesting of how the Americans are responding. But
Mhm.
what I'm trying to say is the profiles that I have seen are along the lines of "fuck you very much, I'm learning Chinese" attitude, and everyone is saying how welcoming Chinese people are in Xiaohongshu, and it's just flooding a little bit, right, for the past maybe a couple days before the ban. So I'm not quite sure what's like now, but what about for you? What have you noticed before the ban?
Yeah, like at first, when I hear the story, when I hear the concepts, I had the same reaction as yours. I feel like, at least from the Western side, the TikTok users are trying to have a protest against the ban because they're feeling the tool they love, initially created by like the Chinese company TikTok, will be banned and removed from them, and they want to find a completely Chinese owned company or the similar like software, which they find like the Xiaohongshu, like the red notes, to show like they don't care about the ownership of the data. They don't care about the national security, and they want to show they love the Chinese apps, and they want TikTok to stay. So that's the first like impression I had. That's actually very interesting because I feel like it's, how do I put it? Because I had this stereotypical like idea regarding how the Western societies are really sensitive about privacy and how they are scared of being exposed to foreign threats and all those things. But it turns out people can be chill in the situations. So maybe all the political like conversation or the portraits we hear may not be the most accurate way to reflection on the society in this case.
I think there's two sides of the coin. I think people do care about the privacy part of it. When you take away a platform that
Hmm.
gives a lot of exposure especially with a social media platform like TikTok. Like, no
Hmm.
other social media platform is able to do this. Not even Instagram, Facebook, X, you know? It's just not the type of algorithm. It just doesn't have the same reach, right?
Yeah.
So when you take it away, and some people make a lot of money from it, and people use that platform to make a life out of it. They use it to as a search engine, use it as like some sort of
Hmm.
education thing. Whether or not it's true, and a huge news outlet for people across the globe, but a huge audience is from the United States. But when that's taken away, I think people are left to choose what the alternatives are, and that was just a really interesting way of responding, just, to RedNote, and it was just absolutely insane how overwhelmingly, I don't know if positive is the right word, because I have seen the negative side of it, um, which we will talk about in a bit. This whole entire shift may not be the concern for privacy is as large as we think it might. Maybe it does. Maybe people that have not experienced it, identity theft or any types of cybersecurity issues,
Hmm.
they haven't been able to visualize or experience what that is like. So they aren't able to relate that type of experience. At the same time, it could just be propaganda, right? So
Yeah,
who
yeah.
who knows?
I agree with you. I feel like economic reason is definitely one major factor. I do believe there's many people are rely on TikTok to be a content creator to have a livelihood based on the platform. So it does make sense a lot. I also also am curious to learn because I'm not really an expert on like the short videos and all those contents. So I do believe there are other platforms have similar features, but can they
Yeah,
be a replacement or it's only like only for TikTok? Because I know like YouTube have YouTube Shorts, the
yeah.
Instagram, they have like similar features. Are they an
Mhm.
alternative or are not?
Wait, you mean you don't subscribe to social media?
Yeah, I mean, I have the healthy level of exposure. Not sorry,
Mhm.
not
Good for
not
you.
healthy. Yeah, not like. Let me change the phrase. Like, I don't have a maximal exposure to the social media, so I got the
Okay.
exposure from time to time. So it doesn't. But I'm not. I'm definitely not the trending person to catch every like news
Yeah.
at the first time. Yeah.
I think I'm very on and off with TikTok and social media as well. So it just depends. Yes, to answer your question, there is definitely replacement for it, such as YouTube Shorts and then Instagram Reels and Facebook. All short form video contents do exist. But I think it just does not have the same algorithm and reach of audience, and the requirements of each video that each person posts does not necessarily have the same type of effect for TikTok. So I
Hmm.
think because of that, the audience have been trying to look for that replacement so then they can have the similar experiences.
All similar profits.
Or similar profits, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, YouTube, I don't know how YouTube works now, but all I hear about YouTube, it kind of changed from old YouTube to now.
Mhm.
There's like a lot of production in YouTube, and the quality of YouTube videos have definitely changed. So those type of longer forms of content is not what people are looking for in terms of they don't even have the attention span to even watch the 10-minute video or even anything longer, right? I
Mhm.
mean, whatever the algorithm is in on YouTube now, and because I know that changes a lot. I think just people were just looking for something a little bit similar, and the only thing that they found was RedNote, Xiaohongshu. Yeah. I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the other side of this whole situation. Mm, Xiaohongshu's audience, the original audience of the Chinese people who figured out, they're like, oh, there's refugees here. There is randomly people posting in English. And even on live videos, when they're doing live chats and live videos in Xiaohongshu, they've noticed some English comments or the posts that have English comments, which is completely crazy rare in Xiaohongshu, right? So I think that's where the refugee part came in. And then obviously from the hashtag is refugee, blah, blah, blah. And the response from those traditional Chinese people, I can't say 100% of them, they were all very welcoming. And some of them were quite shocked that they were like, oh, how did you get on my profile? Or how did they find me, type of thing. So the reach in Xiaohongshu is quite interesting as well, right? So what I'm thinking
Yeah,
is,
it's a very unique platform. Yeah.
yeah, it's like Pinterest, Instagram, TikTok all like merged into one. So the attitude from the Chinese people are very, very welcoming, but there were some undertones of it that I kind of picked up on, and maybe that's only, you know, me as that one sample
Hmm.
who scrolled through the social media of that platform and figured, oh, this is really weird for mainland Chinese people to experience, right?
Yeah, it's
And
definitely a new experience for most people, I would say. Yeah.
yeah, and then a lot of information exchange between the two countries was quite interesting to see because everybody on TikTok is talking about it.
Hmm.
They were like, "Oh, you guys don't have to pay a lot of money for an ambulance?" Or,
Yeah,
"Wait, how much money are you paying for groceries? Barely anything."
yeah, yeah.
Like the conversion rate, I understand, right? A conversion rate for a corn, wait, for corn on a cob, for a corn on a cob,
Hmm.
cob on a corn, corn on a cob, is barely a dollar. Maybe it was 67 cents or something like that
Hmm.
conversion to US dollars. And in
Hmm.
USD, I'm not sure how much it was, but it was something ridiculous, like $5 per
Hmm.
corn.
Hmm.
So there was like a lot of comparisons with like
Yeah.
healthcare, living cost, how much income they have to make in order to have a decent living, how much
Hmm.
time they have to spend wi on their jobs. So a lot
Yeah.
of interesting false information that was fed to America,
I think both parties.
or even both parties,
Yeah,
exactly. So maybe,
exactly. So it's a, I think it's a
yeah,
cultural exchange for sure. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know what would sprout from this.
I would say it's, I'm not sure what's the impact, but I think it's amazing because, as you mentioned, I do see people are having this amazing opportunity to communicate with each other and to compare all the living expenses and how they are, their real lives through like the personal experiences, but not from like those mainstream media or the media from like the propagandas, whatever, defeating them. So it's actually the first, one of the rare times when the massive audience can get a chance to communicate with each other about their real experiences and feelings. They're
Yeah,
comparing, all the expenses you mentioned, and also the debt, like the medical bills, and also like
yeah.
how many people are, in the America, are actually living paycheck to paycheck, and how many
Mhm.
Chinese people are, that they are struggling to live, uh, but at the same time they manage to live with the low income. So that's a
Right.
different words, because we had some discussion before regarding like, I feel like that in the Chinese side there's some stereotypes regarding all Americans or Western people are very rich, and they can,
Mhm.
because based on the number they saw on the data, they have like multiple times of the income, average income compared to what have in China. And if the ordinary people just do a math, they'll be like, "Oh my god, they're like super rich. They work for 1 year and equals to 10 years of my work." So that would be like, "Oh, they must be like living like kings in US," but it's not the case.
It's only the conversion, right?
Yeah,
Is that
it's
what you
only a
mean?
conversion. Yeah, it's based on the exchange rate and based on the number on the salary, the mean
Yeah.
salary, average salary. So people make calculations. Yeah,
Mhm.
um, and also it's interesting for, well, I know most people will have this common sense, but it may be interesting for some US people to know that the polarization of wealth in China is really huge. It's not always uh, there's not always people you see as the international students or international travelers you see in your own country, like they
Right.
are spending everything, they're buying everything, they are like appearing like really rich and
Yeah.
comfortable. So that's definitely great.
Yeah, it's like a different perspective than what you see in international students versus people who've never left the country, right?
Hmm.
And I think that on the other hand, it's not as glamorous as we think it is because, you know, living in China has its perks as well as its mm, what's the
Limitations.
there we go, limitations. Wow.
We're
Thank you.
trying to be polite.
No, 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 help me. And I think it's also really interesting that was displayed, at least just a little bit. I'm really interested to see what the if there is an impact or if there is any long-term impact.
I agree. The reason why I say this opportunity or chance, and also this platform of RedNote is a really rare opportunity or chance,
Mm,
is because, do you know, like China has um, basically China has a great firewall that
great
blocks the,
firewall?
yeah, to block the communication from two parties.
It's
So,
only they could only do so much, I think. Like, it does work, but I don't think it works that well, right?
but it blocks majority of the people. So
Oh,
we
okay.
never have this such an exposure. So basically, for the audience have no context.
Mm,
Um, the Chinese people don't have the access to Google
mhm.
Maps,
Yeah,
or YouTube, or even like TikTok, Instagram, and all the apps that's popular in the Western society, like including WhatsApp and all the Telegram, or you just name it.
yeah.
So they basically were not accessible to all those platforms, but you do see some people have access to them because they use the VPN, and also
Mhm.
they may live abroad. That's some group of Chinese people you can see, but that's a small portion or small number compared to the majority of people living in China.
Yeah, because they have
And
their own version of the apps, like, whatever
everything,
the
yeah,
Western part of it would have, like a YouTube, China would have a version of YouTube. If it's Instagram, there would be a version of Instagram.
yeah,
If it's Uber, there would be a version of Uber, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So
And also because of that, those alternatives in China, they're
mhm,
very big because they don't face the direct competition with those giants, and they grow from small to big companies, and some of them are even listed in the US stock market. So
yeah,
I'm not going to go into too many details, but just give you a picture of this. So because of it, it's really hard for Chinese people to have access to the external world, and also it's really hard for the I think the US people to get rich to the Chinese people in an ordinary way. So which makes the red note Xiaohongshu, like we discussed, a very special existence. And
yeah.
not sure exactly why it's not blocked from the international access. I think it have a very complicated origin, but uh, by my understanding, it's a platform that firstly used by like the female community.
Oh, it's mostly by the female community?
Yeah, it's a
in Xiaohongshu?
platform. Yeah, RedNote is a it's mainly used by female communities to promote like all those like lifestyle and to show
Oh.
like those makeups and all those products and how like the female influencers trying to gain their influence. And naturally when it involves lifestyle, it involves like showing the lifestyle from like globally as those
Mm,
international students and expats. So I think
mm.
that's the origin of its access to the international market, because they want the international students and also those expats to show their lifestyles and to sell the products. But it's mainly between Chinese people, between Chinese
Yeah,
expats, international students, and mainline Chinese people. It's
yeah,
never
because
meant to be like for the foreign audience.
yeah. Because when you use Xiaohongshu in the Western society, I know that people introduced it to me to go travel, and if you were to go to a city that you're not familiar with, you can search up all the fun things that you could potentially do in Xiaohongshu, and they can even let you know about certain secrets within a city that you might not have been able to find. Like if you were just randomly traveling to that city, if there was like a gem of a restaurant, or if there's a
Hmm.
way for you to purchase a cheaper ticket, you would be able to find it in Xiaohongshu.
Yeah,
Versus if you didn't have that, then you would have, either paid a higher price, or you would have not been able to find this restaurant, or XYZ, right? So
yeah,
it
exactly.
that's how I know that people use it for traveling. It's very interesting and similar to TikTok, right? And that's what I would use for TikTok too. And if there's a city that I want to travel and I would like look at some recommendations, that's where I would look. So this cultural exchange have been quite interesting, to the fact that there is another side to it. I don't know if you kind of saw this, but there was a few videos. So maybe let's just talk about the Xiaohongshu part of it. When
Sure.
there was this guy who had a permed hair, which was very, very curly, and he was quite young. And I think it was during his live feed, and there's people commenting on his live feed, and he just couldn't really understand why people were upset at his hairstyle. It was his hair that he just decided to have that one day, right? Or had the perm for a while. I guess in Western society would consider it as offensive, because it looked very black,
Hmm.
African culture type of hair, type of perm,
Hmm.
type of curls, right?
Yeah.
But for China, it was like just a style that he wanted, and it was so innocent. And it's really
Yeah.
interesting that because of this refugee TikTok, it kind of got shoved into his face. But I
Yeah.
don't know how I feel about that, because if someone doesn't know something and it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily affect the Western culture, is it okay to call someone out like that? If you were to invade someone's space and someone's country or someone's app, you know what I mean? Like let me throw in an example. If you were to move to China as,
Yeah.
some American, and you see some guy wearing braids and they think it's just a cool style, and they know nothing about being racist or anything like that, and they just
Hmm.
don't think of that, and they just think of it as this streetwear or some sort of brand or style, that a personal style that they have.
Hmm.
And that's almost like you going up to that person and be like, "Yo, your hair is not okay." Because in America,
Yeah.
this is offensive.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That.
So, there was that happening, like, as one of the examples, and I was a little bit taken back by. I was like, "Okay, is this okay for this to happen in Xiaohongshu?"
I agree. So it's like cultural appropriation.
A
Like,
cultural appropriation. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely not a thing in China. It's never a thing in China. I'm not saying like Chinese people are not racist or anything. Just like I saw some form of racism, but it's definitely not the. It's not the that.
Ten.
It's never the form that agree in the Western culture. Like it's not the ways that it's basically it's different criteria, different definitions, and different like
Views. Yeah, different views.
social backgrounds. So almost everything you saw that can be offensive is probably a mistake or misunderstanding. But
And it's not the intention.
yeah, it's not an intention. Yeah.
Yeah, and then on the other side of TikTok, there are people in, say, international students or previously were international students in America. They would comment saying that racism 100% would exist if
Hmm.
the apps were to be flipped.
Hmm.
If Xiaohongshu refugee people were to move to TikTok, then the response from America would not be very friendly.
Oh yeah.
And I had to think about that, and I would say I would half agree. There would be a lot of people who would not understand, be like, "Why the fuck are you writing Chinese on my wall, on my
Hmm.
comments? I don't understand. Speak English only, please," kind of thing. Yeah, it's interesting to think about that flip side as well.
I can definitely relate to that. I do actually hear some comments in the similar way from like Chinese side as well.
Mm,
I because like there's two version of the apps. Like there's a Chinese TikTok and there's an American TikTok, and
yeah,
there are people like there's some of people I know that's complaining about like I went to the Chinese version for Chinese content, but now I'm seeing more like English ones as well. So
yeah,
I do see this uncomfortable from both sides, if it
mhm,
may call it. But I do see it's a good sign for cultural exchanges because how do I put it? Like we used to have this war that blocked the two words completely. So we rely on the traditional news to learn everything from each other, except for a
yeah,
few that have a chance to break the wall, like international students. But I see this chance of this war getting the gaps or the chance of exposure is getting bigger.
mhm,
I do see this could be some initial uncomfortableness, and people would be like, "What the what is happening?" Regarding like from both parties and from both sides. But I do believe it's a positive sign. It's an initiation of communication, and it can bring more understanding and mutual understanding, and also some of the uh, in the future. I hope. Because in the end, I do feel like I know most people don't care about politics and all those like high level aspects or notions regarding like who is in charge and what propaganda people are making and whatever. But I think we are affected by this changing world and shifting like work orders, whatever you may call it. And we saw there's so many conflicts in the world. People are fighting for certain things. People are trying to convince people certain beliefs are better than others.
yeah,
Um, that's why I do believe a channel of communication is really positive, especially when people who have interests are promoting their own propagandas and trying to convince people to support their interests. I like to see this communication to be more and to be for people to realize we are human beings in the end. It's not like two countries, two different people, and two different, completely different cultures. Yeah, like, yeah, of course, like people have different uprising, education, whatever. But in the end, we're very similar. Like, even like by my experience
yeah,
living here, I was like, yeah, we are human beings. We are like having similar like love, joy, and we are all we are happy when we gain something. We will be fear. We will be angry if we lose something, and we can be lazy. We can be working hard. We are human.
Yeah, these human traits are universal, right? Every single country will have a spectrum of all of these traits, and it doesn't matter where you're from or th- there are certain stereotypes that may hold a little bit true sometimes, but at the same time, I think this incident allows for two different extremes that would happen. Those that are very closed-minded that about this, and where I have mentioned people are not welcome to this idea of this cultural exchange because one, they have been previously hurt by it, by experiencing racism in America, or those that are just not open to this cultural exchange in any forms, just because they're not as exposed to it internationally, right? And there are going to be those people on the other side who are really, really open and welcome the idea of it. And I think it's necessary for education and open mindedness to continue this conversation. Because at the end of the day, I personally
Mhm.
think it's not the citizens that are fighting, it's mommy and daddy are fighting,
Oh yeah,
right?
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
It's the politics, and a lot of the times it's like it's fine with how things are, and politics of people wanting to gain the upper hand and natural human power really just takes over when you're at that level
Hmm.
of I hope that it continues to have a positive impact and brings better light to different parts of each culture. I don't know about you, but I have been previously consuming a lot of more Chinese content in American TikTok, and
Hmm.
it's kind of giving me a lot of feelings about wanting to visit China again because I haven't been back to China for a very, very long time. So my image of China is it just doesn't exist, you know? It needs to be upgraded.
Yeah,
And yeah, there's has been so much change in China that I think I would love seeing it because, you know, the technological advances between the rails and the connections and the nature that China has, it's phenomenal. But I haven't had a chance to see it.
I totally agree with you. From the recent years, I just realized there's so many obstacles that
Mm,
preventing people from having those conversations and communications. Like the firewall we just discussed, it's cutting all the internet communications from online. And also, I didn't notice how hard it is for the foreigner to visit and travel to China
yeah.
until I am helping some of my friends, trying to, helping them to do some applications and also trying to buy them some tickets to visit some of
Mm,
the gardens or places in China.
okay.
It's actually surprisingly hard because
Is it?
yeah, because like after COVID, most of the Chinese places, those like famous places, they are introducing a system to for the reservations on a good intent for sure, because they want to control the people visiting the place and to make sure that everyone's being taken care, at least on the surface. But the problem is all those systems are Chinese systems and doesn't really have an English. Well, I would say have a limited English access.
Yeah.
Also, those systems are linked to the Chinese paying and financial systems,
Yes.
which means you cannot use your credit card. You need to have a Chinese bank account. You can only have a Chinese bank account or have a Chinese PayPal, whatever, payment system to support that.
So next time if I go to China, I'm gonna need to hit you up. You're gonna have to help me set up the banking and all that stuff. I can't use my credit card. That's so inconvenient. I want my points.
Yeah, yeah. So in some places you can still use that, but I do see it
Mm,
was a problem in some of the reservation in some places. And for Chinese people, that's not a barrier because they would say, okay, give me your ID so I can help you to do the registration, or you can work with a travel agency. They will naturally like collect your ID for that.
right.
Uh, but for most people, I think Western people are used to like doing like those uh, those like backpack trip and to do them themselves, and it's really hard if they want to
Mhm,
do that. If you are referred by another friend, you will have a hesitation to give me your ID to a stranger
mhm.
like me, right? So that's a lot of barrier than more than I expected when I view this from a Chinese perspective.
Yeah, it is a barrier to go to China, but I've also seen a lot of these financial systems being implemented in the West, right? A lot of the
Yeah.
Chinese apps are currently being used in Western societies. If you don't have a credit card and you're from China, a lot of the Chinese places that you potentially go to, at least in London, in Chinatown, they have that Chinese payment system for you to transfer that money to the shop, whatever you're shopping for, and they have it. And I believe Canada has it, US probably have it as well. As long as you have the app, then it's usable, but it's harder to go the other way around because I think it's just a language barrier, right? But either
Yeah.
way, I just find it really funny when people are learning Chinese now. The African American population are so sassy and so funny about learning Chinese. It's so good. It's so good. I applaud them, and they
Yeah.
immediately say, "How do I say this?" And in Google Translate, and they say it, and it was just really entertaining for me. It was great. But overall, I think this whole entire experience, there are lessons and there are things to reflect on, and I hope that it has a positive impact. I don't know how long lasting it's going to be since the ban is not in effect anymore, but at least it was a part in history where social media kind of rebelled in in America.
I do have high hopes. I do believe there will be more opportunities for such exchanges to happen and for people to know. As you said, it's it's mainly a big players games, and we don't really need to participate as part of it to believe in all the information being fed to us. That's actually very important for me because I do see the hopes here. So you see, like the AI is going to can be a really powerful agency for translation for the future, and also you can see there's more ways for communication, for learning the cultural differences, um, by individuals, not by like those official channels or propagandas, whatever. Because I saw how easy people are influenced by the media and by the information they are fed to.
They've
Because
been
like
lied to. They have been lied, and they're calling the government out. For
yeah,
sure, yeah.
because like there's an era when Chinese people, when China has a really rapid economic growth for the past like 30 or 40 years. So there's a at least for the first 20 or 30 years, people are very pro-Western. So people are like, oh, we want to learn everything from the Western culture. We want to learn
Yeah.
everything from the Western companies and to learn what's the advanced, experiences and techniques, and to trying to have some reforms in certain areas to catch up and to be able to internationalize our lives and to
Mhm,
be able
mhm.
to match the development of human civilization, whatever, however
Yeah.
you call it. So we do see a lot of the changes, we do see a lot of the developments based on this.
As an example for that, I remember Starbucks, for example, infiltrating into China, and it
Hmm.
still is, but it's struggling now, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it was such a thing for Chinese people to, like, hold a cup of Starbucks, and it's such a luxury item to have, you know what I mean?
yeah.
People didn't got in get into coffee a long time ago. Like it was mostly about tea.
Yeah, yeah,
Coffee has
exactly.
been very new in China, and especially when Starbucks invaded, people think this brand, and China loves brands, right? Loves anything Western brands, any European brands, any North American brands, love, 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 love.
Yeah,
But I don't know about now.
it's
Do you
yeah,
think
it's
it's anything?
I think it's changing. Like
Yeah.
for different reasons for sure, because many people are choosing cheaper alternatives because of the
Mm,
financial pressures and everything. But I do
fair.
believe part of it is related to the ideologies. So
Mm,
so like one thing I can another example I can throw up here is that when I was young, when we have the
mhm.
first like McDonald's and KFCs and Pizza Huts in China, those were
Oh, I
considered
loved McDonald's when I was a kid.
yeah,
Loved.
those
I
were like the
would
high
I would beg my mother to go. Beg.
exactly. Those were like the high end restaurants, and not many people have access to. They would be like, I'm considering have a big die out if I go to
Mm,
the Pizza Hut or KFC or all those McDonald's in China.
mhm,
So it's a very interesting era when you see things are developing in a way.
mhm.
But when you see the recent years trends after the China US trade wars and all those like pandemic and all those frictions, you can
Yeah.
see like both parties are promoting more. How do I put it? Is hate a too strong word to use?
I would say they would mask and relay different types of information to their citizens about
Yeah,
each other.
yeah. Once the narrative changes and shifts, I can see like there's a lot of. I can see that there's so many people are changing their minds or they're shifting towards more nationalism, trying to like cater to the national pride, trying to portray the other party as a competitor or the enemy, and trying to blame all the problems to the other party. But that's actually funny in a way because they don't have a chance to expose to the other party to know who they are. So I feel like that this is something I really worry about because I don't feel like people really know each other, but they dislike each other because they are told so.
Prejudice.
Yeah, that's my main idea. I don't want to go too detailed, but yeah, essentially, I do believe this RedNote or like TikTok refugee is a huge highlight or a good sign for
Mhm.
me because I do see the chance of real communication would be possible for the future. So I do hope it can bring more like contact and understanding in a gradual level.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to have long-lasting impact, and I'm not sure if there's gonna be any type of ongoing exchange of information from TikTok to Xiaohongshu, but I think in the long run, we shall see. And now that people have certain access to Xiaohongshu, there might be different types of media that comes in and out of TikTok and kind of chats and conversations like that. So there's going to be a different audience that consumes this type of content. Well, I think we did it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning into Pondering Pandas. If you like this episode, please share it with your friends. Leave us a comment, give us a 5-star review. This would really help us grow. We appreciate you pondering with us. See you on the next episode.
See
Bye.
you. Thank you.